A Beacon in the Dark by Noha Ijiachi. Chapter 40. Parallel Roads. Ray bites down on her lips, suffocating the small gasp of surprise she felt rising up her throat. She had been waiting impatiently, knowing Shoto was going to visit with his boyfriend in tow. He told her enough about Midoriya that she knew the boy she was about to meet played the biggest part in changing Shoto's life for the better, making him happy. She was so grateful, and she wished to make a good impression. Despite the fact this room was all she could show, she made sure to tidy it up, asked the nurses for some fresh flowers to bring some colors into the otherwise anonymous paleness of the place, put on her best outfit. But now as the two boys entered after knocking, she truly realizes how very little she knows of her son's life. Izuku Midoriya looks exactly like the picture Shoto showed her some weeks earlier, if only with vaguely longer hair. Izuku Midoriya is also clutching a white and red striped cane in one hand, his other hooked into Shoto's elbow, and his pale eyes, the same eyes she saw shining like gems in that picture, are unmoving, not reacting to anything. He's blind, she thinks to herself, mercifully stifling the surprise inside her chest. Has Shoto ever mentioned it? I can't recall. Would I have known that if I tried to make more of an effort to look into Shoto's life? What kind of a mother am I? She forces herself to snap out of the dark thoughts gnawing at the back of her mind, the two boys now expectantly waiting by the door. She rises on her feet with a small smile, nodding at Shoto, who appears to be indecisive, his hand resting on Midoriya's fingers in the crook of his elbow. Mom, this is Izuku, he finally says, taking a couple of steps forward, Midoriya following his lead. Midoriya smiles, gently sliding his fingers off Shoto's elbow to fold his cane and offer a hand. There's a vague tenseness in his gesture, and Ray cannot help but find herself losing her own anxious feelings, noticing that Midoriya is actually wearing a nice gray suit. She isn't the only one that wanted to make a good impression, she guesses. It's so nice to meet you, she says, honest and gentle, taking the boy's hand in a soft hold. I'm glad to meet you too, the boy replies with a little tense smile, and once they let go, he nervously fidgets with his cane with both hands. Please have a seat, you two, she adds, gesturing vaguely toward the two chairs she kept ready for them, silently observing as Shoto gently guides his boyfriend down to sit in a way that suggests he's long used to doing that. I'm sure we are all a bit tense, but there's no need to be, she continues once the two boys are seated in front of her, resting her hands in her lap. Thank you so much for finding the time to visit. Shoto told me you are all working very hard. For the upcoming cultural festival, I imagine finding the time to come here mustn't have been easy. Midoriya visibly relaxes at her words, his shoulders drooping just a tiny bit, and his smile gets bigger. It's actually a good excuse to escape Ashido's course in dancing. He laughs. I mean, she's a great teacher, and I'm learning lots of things I will probably be able to apply in my own training. But there's only so many times I can go to sleep feeling like my feet are about to catch on fire before I go insane. Ray chuckles, pointedly not staring, as Shoto casually slides his palm on Midoriya's thigh to go grab his hand. I got lucky, I guess, he comments, amused. Although being in the staging team has its drawbacks, I constantly have to talk down Kirishima, Sero, and Aoyama's increasingly crazier plans. Good thing I got Koda on my side at the very least. What are you guys going to do, anyway? Ray inquires, curious. With how busy you've been, Shoto couldn't exactly explain in great details. A live concert! Midoriya pipes up, clearly excited. It was actually Shoto's idea, I've been told. Shoto blushes slightly. It wasn't. Ashido said that getting everyone to dance would be fun, and I agreed. But it was a group idea. The smile on Ray's lips gets wider at that. It was nice to know her son was relaxed enough around his classmates to suggest something like a live concert. It was just nice to know he now lived in a place where Ray knew he would be safe and happy, not having to walk on eggshells anymore. I'm sure you boys will do great, she comments, honest. Maybe I can come see you if you want me to. Shoto perks up, eyes shining the way they did when he was but a small boy, playing heroes and villains with her. You would? Of course, she reassures, feeling guilt and affection battle inside her chest. I would love to. I'm sure the doctor will have no trouble clearing me up for a day out. The smile on Shoto's face at that could light up a room. Rei promises herself she will move hell on earth to make sure to get cleared for a day out, even if it was the last thing she did. Oh man, I can feel the pressure. Midoriya suddenly snaps her out of her thoughts, fanning himself with a hand. Shoto laughs, elbowing him softly. You are going to do fine, Izuku, he says, rolling his eyes affectionately. Ah! Rei pipes up in the short, relaxed silence that follows. I actually asked to get some sweets delivered. Shoto, can you please go downstairs and see if they've arrived? Shoto blinks at that, looking between her and Midoriya a couple of times, indecisively biting at his lower lip. Rei manages to catch it, the way Midoriya minutely squeezes Shoto's hand before Shoto releases a tiny sigh and leans in to place a small kiss on Midoriya's temple. I'll be right back, he murmurs, letting the boy's hand go as he stands. He nods to Rei, something charged in his eyes, before padding outside and closing the door with a soft click. She stays silent for a second, observing the boy sitting in front of her properly. She only now notices the small scar under his right eye, and how the constellation of freckles on his cheeks actually extends on the bridge of his nose, so pale they are almost invisible. How his right fingers look vaguely misshapen, more scars appearing on them and on the back of his right hand. She's almost overwhelmed by the need to ask so many things to know more about this boy that clearly means the world to Shoto, but she doesn't want to scare him away. And in a sense, maybe she still has to properly earn the right to ask more, to put her nose into Shoto's business. I guess that was a very transparent way to get a minute, just the two of us. She finally starts careful. I just wanted to thank you personally for everything you've done for Shoto, even if I know but a small part of that. Midoriya blinks, pale eyes pointed at her widening, vaguely in surprise. Ah! He gasps, surprised. I haven't done much, really, he finally says, nervously picking at the seam of his suit. If only I probably just caused him more trouble than any good thing I could have possibly done for him. Based on what Shoto told me of Midoriya, this is not surprising at all. Rei comments to herself, a lopsided smile pulling at her lips. I'm sure you're downplaying your own actions greatly, she replies, shaking her head. Regardless, I still wish to thank you. Shoto is so much happier, and the fact we've been able to reconnect, it's only thanks to you. I owe you a great debt. The boy shifts on his seat, nervously rubbing his neck. There's no need. You really don't owe me anything, he says. Shoto has done so much for me, too. It's not like I was the only one. I really don't need anything, just to know that he's happy. Rei hums, crossing her fingers as she observes him. She's so lucky. Who knows if her and Shoto would have ever been able to see each other hadn't it been for Midoriya. She's so lucky to have such a nice, caring boy having crossed paths with her son. To have him return Shoto's affection, support him in his lowest moments. Midoriya hesitates, frowning just a tiny bit. His pale eyes set on her in a way that makes her almost feel like he's staring, for how impossible that is. I don't know if you want me to call you Todoroki, or... She goes still, surprised. Shoto told her he opened up to Midoriya, but never quite elaborated on that. The way Midoriya just said that sentence definitely makes her feel like Shoto must have opened to him quite a bit, more than he has ever done with anyone else in his life. I think you can just call me Rei, she finally says, careful. I won't be offended. Midoriya gives her a sharp nod, the little twist between his eyebrows smoothing over. I guess I just want to reassure you that Shoto is being taken care of, he continues, voice low. Not just by me. All our friends care deeply for him and will always be there for him. And our teachers, too. So I think
I think you shouldn't worry too much for Shoto and focus on your own healing, so one day you'll be able to welcome him back home. Your own home.
He pauses for a moment, biting down on his lips.
He never said it, but I think Shoto wishes nothing more than to be able to one day be able to say, "I'm home, Mom," without having to worry about anything else.
Rei cannot help but let out a small, sharp gasp. Tears sting in her eyes, and as Midoriya's eyebrows twist in worry and he opens his mouth again, Rei murmurs, I hope I will be able to do that one day. She reassures him, her voice only trembling at the start. I will try my best. The boy shifts on his seat again, giving her a softer nod, a small contrite expression on his face. Rei takes a deep breath, recomposing herself, before asking in a lighter tone, Why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? Even if Shoto has told me much already, I would like to know you a bit better.
Oh!
Midoriya blinks, stumbling on his tongue. He clears his throat before continuing.
I don't know. There's really not much to say that you probably don't know already. I'm 16. My birthday is on July 15th. I'm in UA because I want to become a hero, of course. My favorite food is katsuton, and I'm blind.
Rei splutters a small laugh, surprised by his bluntness. You'd be surprised. I didn't know at least 3 of the things you said, she says, amused. Midoriya smiles, looking accomplished.
I guess Shoto didn't tell you that I'm blind. You sounded surprised when we entered.
I don't remember him ever mentioning it, Rei admits softly.
If I can ask, is it partial or total blindness? The boy shrugs. I have no light perception at all. It's actually probably due to my quirk. I've been like this since I was 4.
Really? Rei murmurs, her fingers raising to her lips.
That's surprising. I've never heard of such a drastic quirk effect before.
Midoriya shrugs again.
I guess I drew the short straw in the evolutionary pool, but it could have been worse, he comments, almost sardonic. I'm used to it, so it's really not that big of a deal.
I understand. Thank you for telling me. Rei replies, keeping at bay her curiosity. I know this isn't really any of my business, but what about your family? Siblings?
I'm an only son. It was just me and my mom.
His voice turns affectionate.
I never really suffered for it. She's the best.
Rei tilts her head on aside, not sure she has any right to ask, but before she can say anything, Midoriya continues.
My biological father, he left to work abroad when I was so little I basically don't remember him. We don't have much of a relationship. Or a relationship at all, really.
She hums her understanding, distractedly tapping a finger on her chin. I hope you have a better one with your stepfather then. Midoriya blinks, eyes going wide.
What?
Rei blinks back, confused by that reaction. I'm sorry? Did I say something wrong?
I don't have a stepfather.
Midoriya replies, clearly puzzled.
Oh!
Rei exhales faintly.
I'm sorry.
I guess there was something in the way you worded your sentences that made me think you had one.
Sorry for assuming.
She apologizes, embarrassed by the blunder. But Midoriya snaps his mouth closed, sudden understanding flashing in his head.
It's okay,
he finally says softly, after a couple of seconds of silence.
I guess there's someone that's kind of like a father for me, so you were not entirely wrong.
He paused for a moment, looking strangely melancholic.
I never really thought of it that way before.
She stays silent, feeling like she just stepped in what is uncharted territory for the both of them. Thankfully, Shoto's timing seems to be unblanked, because he steps back into the room with a tray of baked goods just in time to break the embarrassed silence that fell on the both of them. Is something wrong? He immediately asks, glancing between the both of them.
Everything's all right,
Midoriya replies with a small smile.
What have you got there? Smells real nice.
You're such a hound, Shoto replies with a little eye roll and a smile, depositing the tray on the desk carefully. Rei rises on her feet, approaching the small electric kettle in order to prepare some tea. The rest of the afternoon goes by far more relaxed, the three of them sharing the sweets sitting around her small desk, as Shoto and Midoriya both entertain her with funny stories from their school days, making her laugh almost to the point of tears.
Oh, so many visitors today,
The young woman behind the desk says, clearly happy.
I'm sure Miss Todoroki must be thrilled.
She continues, filling in a form, missing the confused look Fuyumi and Natsuo shared.
Here,
She finally looks up, giving them a small card.
you know the way.
Thank you, Fuyumi replies, her tone almost shifting into a question. Still, they silently walk down a familiar corridor and then climb in the elevator, exchanging another look once the door slides closed, mutedly. I guess Shoto's here, Natsuo finally says, tone a bit flat. Fuyumi gives him a small pat, knowing very well how tense his younger brother is about the idea of meeting Shoto so suddenly. He probably hadn't seen him at least since a good month before high school even started.
He's been visiting pretty consistently, but I didn't know he was going to come today,
She says with a small shrug.
He told me he's been so busy lately with his extra lessons and the festival approaching that I didn't think he'd find the time.
Natsuo doesn't reply immediately, staring up at the shifting numbers on the display. Do you think it's going to be fine? Will he be mad at me?
Fuyumi frowns. Why would he be mad at you?
Natsuo gapes silently, making a vague gesture with both hands before deflating with a sigh. Fuyumi pats him again.
It's going to be fine,
She says, gentle.
You told me you wanted to try and build a better relationship with him, right?
Yeah, but not so suddenly. Natsuo immediately pipes up, almost pounding. A gesture she's very familiar with, meant to hide how tense he truly was. I wanted to ready myself first. It takes everything Fuyumi has not to roll her eyes at him.
It'll be fine, Natsu. Come on, I'm sure Mom will be happy to have all of us there.
Giving in with a sigh, Natsuo follows her as soon as the door slides open. But the both of them freeze in surprise when they turn a corner and notice Shoto down the corridor in front of their mother's room. He's not alone. There's a boy with him, someone that they both knew indirectly. The mop-up messy green hair is unmistakable. Izuku Midoriya is smiling gently, nodding at Shoto after he said something they couldn't hear. Shoto smiles back in a way they hadn't seen him smile since pretty much forever, offering his arm, and Midoriya hooks his fingers in the crook of Shoto's elbow, clutching a cane with his other hand. They turn, walking in the other direction toward the exit elevator, clearly not having noticed Fuyumi and Natsuo. They step in, and the both of them have just a split second before the doors slide close to notice Midoriya put his head against Shoto's shoulder, and Shoto leaning in to rest his cheek on Midoriya's curly hair. They stand there a couple of seconds, completely silent, before exchanging yet another look, and then making their way for the door. When they open it, their mother is standing by the desk, putting away empty cups and a tray full of crumbs with a small smile. She turns, blinking.
Oh, Fuyumi, Natsu.
Her smile widens.
What a surprise. You guys just missed Shoto for barely a minute.
We didn't miss him, Natsuo exclaims, widening his arms. We just saw him going away with his classmate. Ray blinks again, clearly puzzled by Natsuo's tone. Fuyumi intervenes, tone softer.
They seemed to act very close,
she says, tilting both eyebrows. Much to their surprise, Ray chuckles.
He did tell me that, well,
she says, putting down the empty cups that she piled in a small tower.
I don't know if I should say, Mom!
She chuckles again, clearly amused.
That boy he was with is his boyfriend. He brought him here so he could introduce him to me.
She finally says, her voice suggesting she's very likely thinking, isn't that adorable? Say what? Natsuo exclaims, his arms going even wider. Fuyumi hums a finger on her lips.
I was wondering about that. There was definitely something in the way he spoke of Midoriya.
She turns toward Natsuo, frowning. What's with that face? Don't tell me you've got a problem with that. Oh, please, who do you think I am? Natsuo replies with a scoff. I'm just salty Shoto's got a significant other before me. Unfair. Both Fuyumi and Ray laugh at that, and Natsuo theatrically let himself fall on the bed, an arm over his forehead. Yeah, be that way, laugh about it, he moans, melodramatic. Ray shakes her head. There are a couple of pastries left in the mini fridge if you guys want them, she says, amused. And you get pastries too when Shoto is visiting, Natsuo exclaims, clearly fake offended. I call favoritism. It's a testament of how much better their mother has gotten since her and Shoto reconnected. The fact that she grabs a pillow and throws it in Natsumo's face, making him laugh. As Fuyumi bends down to take the pastries out the mini fridge, smiling to herself, she starts to think of the best way to scold Shoto for not telling her about his boyfriend. That is after she's made sure that their younger brother knows that they are happy for him and they will always love and support him no matter what.
Hey, I know you are busy, but do you think you can come to the hospital you're taking your class in next Saturday morning?
Miki blinks down at her phone, surprised, her elbows resting on the counter as she thumbs in a response. Yeah, sure. If I can ask, why? Is everything okay?
Nothing to worry about. I think my therapist gave me some exams she wants me to do. I don't really know much, but I thought it could be an occasion to see each other, even if the circumstances are what they are.
You have a point. Better than nothing, I guess. Give me a time and I'll be there. How are preparations for the festival going?
Ashido is still trying to kill me, lol. But she said I'm getting better, so I guess the training is paying off.
Oh, Miki! Hi! The voice surprises her, making her look up from the screen. The familiar face of Miss Shimizu welcomes her. I wasn't expecting you today. Did I mix days? No, there's no class today, Miki replies with a smile. I was just passing by and I thought I'd bring some snacks for the kids, she adds, raising an arm to show the plastic bag hanging from her elbow. Oh, thank you so much, Miss Shimizu exhales, surprised. You're always so thoughtful, dear. Embarrassed, Miki shrugs before sliding the bag off her arm to give over the counter. The woman accepts it gladly before her expression turns pensive and she sighs. Is something wrong? Miki asks softly after a pause, distractedly shifting the phone in her hands.
It's nothing. I was just thinking about a patient we had some time ago,
Miss Shimizu replies, her tone subdued.
She was about your age. Suffered a terrible incident, poor girl. I'm just sad she left before you started taking classes. I'm sure you would have got all along pretty well. She surely needed a nice friend like you.
Before Miki could say anything, Miss Shimizu shakes her head.
Well, no point thinking about the what-ifs. Sorry for unloading this on you.
It's okay, Miki says, voice low. I think it's nice of you like that. Even after working here so many years, you still care so much about the patients. Miss Shimizu smiles at that, eyes crinkling behind her glasses.
A blessing and a curse, she comments, amused. I'm sure you understand what I mean very well.
Miki can't help it and looks down at the phone in her hands. Izuku just sent her a lopsided selfie, just the top of his head visible in frame. Behind him, some of his classmates in gym clothes froze in weird poses, with Ashido Mina throwing her arms up in the air. A small smile pulls at her lips, but still she can't help but worry. She loves Izuku so much, but she really wishes she could just slap him on the head sometimes. The guy is a trouble magnet, and the things he's not telling her are piling up. She can hear it in his voice whenever they have 5 minutes to speak on the phone. She knows she can't do much. It was inevitable that with the start of high school they would grow a bit apart, and she's grateful for the fact that they are both making efforts to stay in contact despite how busy they are. But she still wishes Izuku would confide in her like he used to. He's got his UA friends now, and his boyfriend too. She thinks a bit sad. Just accept it and move on. Hopefully once you'll both be out of school, it'll be easier to spend some time together. At least Mom and Miss Midoriya are still as close-knit as ever. That was better than nothing. Yeah, I think I get it, she finally replies with a lopsided smile, pocketing the phone. She should just give up to the fact she will always worry for Izuku no matter what. Does it ever get easier? Not really, Miss Shimizu says with an apologetic smile. You've still got time to change your mind about your future career and not launch yourself in this madness, you know? Nah, I think I'm set at this point. Miki shrugs. I'm in way too deep. Her steps echo as she follows the empty alley, heart lodged in her throat. You can still turn around, a tiny traitorous voice whispers from the back of her head. You don't have to do this. But I do, she replies, a scowl emerging on her face. What else is left at this point? The voice quiets as she finally arrives at the red door described in the message she got. She knocks once, pauses, and then knocks 3 more times in rapid succession. The door opens with a painful creak of metal turning, opening onto complete darkness. She steps forward, adjusting her grip on the strap of her backpack, and the door closes behind her with a clang. It takes her a few seconds of squinting before her eyes adjust to the lack of light. Didn't know this was supposed to be a kindergarten. A male voice sneers from a corner, and she turns, setting her eyes on a short humanoid figure with insect-like features she cannot properly make out in the dark. Give it a break, Ro, a woman replies, sounding tired. She only answers with a dignified sniff, ignoring the insect-like guy. There are other people in the room, their features just barely visible in the black. A pair of bright pupilless white eyes shines bright from a corner, making her feel like she's being stared at. She doesn't speak, even if the question is just right on the tip of her tongue. Thankfully, another door soon opens, a blade of yellow light cutting in and make her flinch slightly. You were all here for the same reason, the man that opened the door says, his tone flat and bored. She squints, adjusting to the light and finding herself observing a young man with spiky black hair, while parts visible of his body covered in patches of purple marred skin. Now follow me. No questions, no ifs and buts. The boss reserves all rights to put you back out that door if you weren't considered fit. Don't get aggressive with others. There'll be time for that. He adds, vaguely cryptic. Silent, she follows, as do all the other people in the room, squeezing out the darkness into an anonymous gray corridor, the paint peeling from the walls. She barely catches a glimpse of a person covered in acid green scales and a hulking man that has to bend down in order not to hit the doorframe, long muscly arms stretching well below his knees. She notices the man that first spoke when she entered too, as they walk down the corridor. His body seems that of a normal man, but his head has nothing human, antennas twitching as he turns his cockroach-like face to her. What you looking at? He asks, aggressive, and she distantly wonders how can a creature like this emit human sounds. Gee, man, gross, she mutters back, unable to stop herself. The cockroach man immediately turns to her, grabbing the front of her hoodie with bug brown and hair-covered fingers. Hey, what did I just say? The man that instructed them interjects, irritated. Cut the crap, bug, or I'll kick you out right away. Grumbling, Cockroach Man lets her go, staring down at her. She guesses he's glaring, before turning away with a huff. The rest of the walk goes smoothly after that, as their little group gets guided down what feels like a maze of corridors into a big barren room made of concrete and nothing else. Get into a line here. The man guides them, gesturing vaguely as they line up with their backs to the wall. He turns. A girly voice seems to suddenly appear from nowhere, the quality of it suggesting it's coming through some speakers. Yeah, you with the blue hair. She jumps, surprised, looking around with wide eyes as she instinctively points at herself. Me? Yeah, you. What's your name? How old are you? Tamashi, she replies, confused, then gulps, squaring herself and willing her voice to be stronger, steadier. I'm Tamashi Yurui. I'm 16. From somewhere down the line, someone scoffs, probably Cockroach Guy, but the female voice speaks again. Boss, can we keep her? Please, please, please.
Shut it, Toga.
A male, scratchy voice intervenes.
She can stay if she proves herself. Now, you guys are 12. Perfect.
A small pause.
Dobby, I'll leave it to you. Divide them in pairs as you see fit.
The guy with the scars, Dobby, does a little sarcastic salute with his fingers before slowly walking along the line once, icy azure eyes set on them. On his way back, he starts to point at people. You two. And you. He finally points at Tamashi. With him. She follows his finger. He's pointing at the giant hulking guy. Tamashi takes him in, trying to gather how tall he is. Must be at the very least 2.5 meters. He glares down at her squared features, giving him a dull expression, not helped by the prickly buzz gut on top of his head. Tamashi doesn't back down from that gaze, looking right back up with her bright yellow eyes and a scowl on her face. What now? Cockroach Man asks, sarcastic, standing by the side of the person with the white eyes. Tamashi can't make out who they are. They look like someone of indefinite age and gender, and staring at them too long makes her head spin.
Now you fight.
The man with the scratchy voice intervenes once more.
You all told us you'd be useful to the League as warriors. Prove it.
Tamashi feels her heart fall straight down to her feet. It's true that she decided to join despite not having a particular talent. She figured fighting is all she could do. But she's never been in a real fight before. She highly doubts skirmishes with bullies at school counts as such. What did you expect? The voice from the back of her mind is back, sarcastic. A walk in the park? This is an organized group of villains you're talking about. People that were in contact with that man. You knew what you were in for. The hulking man is grinning now, menacingly cracking his knuckles. Tamashi knows she must have gone pale, but she pushes her trembling hands in the pocket of her hoodie, glaring right back up. Dobby snaps his fingers and then guides them back to stand in line against the wall as the first pair selected goes up to the center of the room. It's the man she noticed, covered in bright green scales. His face is covered in scales too, orange eyes emerging from the shiny acid green. He's facing what would look like a normal, boring salaryman, hadn't it been for the 2 pairs of strangely misshapen, covered in thick black fur arms that emerges from his back like a sick imitation of some spider legs.
Well, get on with it,
the man says through the speaker, sounding almost bored. Before we start, the man covered in scales pipes up strangely pacific as his adversary shifts into a battle stance. I must warn you, my scales are covered in a toxin. Minimal contact can cause hours-long paralysis of the limbs, and a prolonged contact will cause a cascade failure of all your internal organs. If you still want to fight, I take no responsibility of what will happen. The man with the spidery arms freezes, squinting behind his glasses. He's probably trying to figure out if his adversary is bluffing. Tamashi muses to herself. It's what I'd do. But if he's serious? Man, would I take that risk? Much to her surprise, the man with the spidery arms does not hesitate a second more, charging for Scaly Guy. She holds her breath as the two clash. The Scaly Guy does nothing more than try to land a chop on his adversary's neck, stopped by his furry arms. Scaly Guy gasps, surprised, as the second pair of arms grabs his legs and yanks him, launching him some meters away to painfully hit concrete. I see, Scaly Guy says, his voice still as peaceful as it was when he first spoke, while he rises back to his feet. That fur isn't just for show. The other man smirks, charging once more. This time, Scaly Guy is more proactive, charging right back, and the two engage in a messy battle as the man with the furry arms tries and fails to hit Scaly Guy, while simultaneously dodging the hits that Scaly Guy is attempting to land on his not fur-covered limbs. In the end, all it takes is a small cut. The man with the fur-covered arms stumbles when one of the scales grazes his thigh, and then falls down, his leg minutely twitching. You won't be able to move for a bit. Sorry, Scaly Guy says, keeping his distance.
Okay,
The scratchy voice says, monotone.
next pair.
The battles go on, as Tamashi observes, cold, fear sitting heavy in her stomach. Everyone here seems to be extremely dangerous and extremely driven. Cockroach Guy ends up going down soon when his inexplicable adversary that hasn't said a word and remains silent even during the battle does something. No matter how hard Tamashi tried to keep her eyes on the action, something she cannot explain happens, and then Cockroach Guy is on the floor, cussing up a storm as he holds his arm. When it's finally her turn, she walks to the center of the room, feeling like a freight train is roaring in her ears. She's starting to get tunnel vision, cold sweat beating on her forehead. You don't have to be afraid. Breathe in and out, slowly. Your talent is so much more amazing than you think. She closes her eyes, a pang of pain in her chest. What would he think? But she doesn't have the luxury to let herself linger. She stifles the question in that dark corner of her soul where everything she didn't want to think about went, and faced her adversary. He's big, but how fast can he be? She wonders, shifting on her feet as a drop of sweat runs down from her temples. All I need is one touch.
Start.
Thoughts leave her mind completely as that word is pronounced, and she dashes. The hulking man doesn't hesitate, charging a punch with his strangely long arm. The pain once the big knuckles make contact with her soft belly is unbearable, but she manages to graze his naked forearm before flying, and when she rises back on her feet, managing just barely not to puke her guts out. The hulking man is on the floor, having ungracefully fallen like a puppet with no strings. She can feel the energy in her shivering palm and holds it there, even if it doesn't help her dizziness.
What is it that you just did?
The man asks through the speakers, a small note of curiosity breaking through his flat tone. She grins. I'm so glad you're in, the blonde girl squeals, happily dancing. Everyone here is so old and boring. You're the first person that's my age. We're gonna be great friends, I know it. Tamashi keeps the ice pack on her stomach, smiling weakly. Ever since she got welcomed into the room, the girl, Himiko Toga, she said, has been chatting her up the wall, excitedly grinning and flashing her strangely pointed canines.
So I'm old and boring, huh?
The man with the black-gray suit covering him from head to toe says, sounding disappointed. Aw, Twice, don't feel like that, Himiko exclaims, doing a little twirl to face him. You're not included in that, you know it. The man seems to perk up at that, and Himiko shifts closer to Tamashi, whispering in a conspiratorial manner. Twice is a nice guy, but a bit out there. Be kind to him, okay? Before Tamashi has even the time to think about how to reply, something beeps from Himiko's ear. Huh? Oh, boss is calling. She giggles. Stay here and rest. You earned it. We'll probably call you guys in a minute, okay? She watches as Himiko, Twice, and Dabi get out, leaving the now cut in almost half group alone. Much to her surprise and disappointment, Cockroach Guy seems to have been accepted despite his disastrous fight with a strange person, as now sitting... Are they sitting or hovering? Tamashi can't really say. In a corner, silent as ever, despite the pointed glares Cockroach Guy is launching in their direction. Are you okay, young woman? Tamashi shakes her head, emerging from her thoughts and looking up in the orange eyes of the man covered in scales. Oh, I'm fine, she replies, surprised by the kindness in his deep voice. He nods, sitting down by her side, with a respectable 40 centimeters of distance between them. You gave your real name. That wasn't very smart, he suddenly says, as peaceful as ever. Tamashi curls her nose, lips pursing. I'll do what I want, she replies, immediately regretting how childish she sounded. I'm gonna guess you have a code name, then. Call me Dokueki. Yeah, figure, she snorts. What is this anyway, you worrying or what? Of course I do. You are barely a child, he replies, unfazed. What would even push you to join such a dangerous group? She squints, indecisive. Why is this guy pushing his scaly nose into her business anyway? I reserve the right to keep that to myself, she replies, imitating his formal speech pattern sarcastically. What about you? He turns to look at her, and she has the distinct impression he's tilting an eyebrow. It's hard to discern with all those scales.
I'm a person covered in deadly venomous scales. What do you think?
She stares back, gold against orange, until she looks away with a little sigh. Guy with a quirk that makes people treat him with hate and suspicion decides to go dark side, she says. A little stereotypical if you ask me. He chuckles, deep.
You'd be surprised,
He replies.
I was actually a police officer until I did something I should have not and won a nice place in a prison cell. The man that took me out of there, I owe him. That's why I'm here.
Tamashi blinks, surprised. You're rather candidly admitting being once part of the police while getting into an underground villain group, she comments, flat. Now who's the very not smart between the two of us?
Oh, I have no doubt my allegiance will not be put into question,
He replies, getting back up on his feet, and for the first time since she first heard him speak, a bit of steel seeps in his voice. Tamashi follows him suit, abandoning the now fully melted ice pack on the floor. Why is that? She asks just as the door opens once more, Dabi beckoning them with a sharp hand gesture.
I killed my entire squadron when I was in the police,
He says, flat, leaving Tamashi behind as he follows the little group toward their new destiny.